NATPE, and we were talking about it last night at dinner, 1962, 63, 64. At one point, NATPE really got its start by meeting here in Chicago, he was telling me. He is a broadcast pioneer. You probably heard of the television program American Bandstand, a fellow named Dick Clark. Dick Clark's career built by this man. Long-time involvement with Philadelphia Phillies baseball, a Pennsylvania broadcast legend and a national legend through NATPE, the founder of the NATPE Association and the Educational Foundation, Mr. Lou Klein.
Means I'm old. Well, experienced and old. First of all, I welcome you. I thank, really, the hospitality here has just been fantastic. We thank you and all the people behind the scenes from the station who have really helped to make this possible. You are the ones who are going to get the jobs. I promise. I promise. I'll be back in 15 years to make sure that that's true. You're the ones because you got up on a beautiful Saturday morning and came here. And some of you traveled a good distance, got here early in the morning, and that tells all of us why you are going to get the jobs. And there are jobs. There are jobs. In fact, there are more opportunities today than I think ever in the history of broadcasting. With all, and you just heard some of the many avenues that there are that did not exist even 10 years ago. You are going to get the job if you have the passion. If this is something you really want to do and are determined, you'll get it. I'm going to ask the panelists to each take about 8 minutes or so and say something about what your job is. And listen carefully, because you're going to hear an assortment of jobs that probably you're even unaware of that are available in this industry. What your job is, what do you do, how did you get there, and third, what suggestions you have for these people, young people, who are looking to take your job. After the each panelist has spoken, and all the panelists have spoken, we'll then have time for questions and answers from either one or all of the panelists. I suggest to you that you, one, take notes, and two, write down any questions that you might have, because you might have a question from Victoria, who's the first panelist. And by the way, the panelists are speaking in alphabetical order, so that'll help you to remember. You might have a question to ask Victoria, but you're not going to get the opportunity until the rest of the panelists have spoken. And let me urge you, one little hint, one little suggestion, one sentence of something that sparks in your mind something that you could be doing, should be doing, it makes the whole morning worthwhile. So listen carefully and hear the message behind the message as to how these people have been successful and why they're here. And the other thing I would just like to note is, take a look. There are young people up here on the panel. These are not, to me, everybody's young. They're young people, and that should tell you the opportunity that you have. This is a business where you don't have to be 40 and 50 and 60 years old to be successful. This is a business, and you've heard, people 5 years out of school, 10 years out of school, 3 years out of school. One of the panelists in another city actually was a panelist while she was in school because she had a job. So this is an opportunity for you, young, passionate, and looking ahead to what's the greatest business there is. And you're going to hear why. So Victoria, if you'll kick it off, we'd like to hear from you.
Oh, okay. I can count to 10. You probably need to know that in this business, that you all know. Oh, microphone. I'm a behind-the-scenes girl. I do not like microphones. I like telling people what to do and talk behind the scenes. So I am not a on-air personality, never wanted to be one, never will be one. The first thing I started actually at WLS TV. I was an intern here in the creative services department because I wanted to do production. I really wanted to produce music videos when I grew up as a kid, but I did not, look at me, I'm not producing music videos. But if you think about it, on-air promotion is kind of like a music video. So I kind of got my dream in some ways because I am writing and producing on-air promotion every day. What I will say about TV is you have to be adaptable, you have to learn a lot, and you always have to be willing to learn. I started out as an intern here, got a job here, then I went to WSVN in Miami, so I went from the most conservative television station, which is WLS TV, I think, to the most craziest television station in Miami where we could do anything, and I was like, whoa, you know, so I had to totally learn how to be creative in a different avenue from here, because this was very conservative. And then I came back to WLS TV, and then I worked at WBBM, and I've been there for a long time. And you know what, there are going to be a lot of opportunities because in the next 5 to 10 years for you guys, because there's a lot of us that are been in this business 25, 30 that are going to be looking to get out of this business. So they're going to need people to take over what we do. So I think there are a lot of opportunities. Plus you also have like the web. Justin Bieber, like all that, you can actually define yourself on the web. The easiest, you can get noticed. You can start your own YouTube channel, put your own thing out there, get 1 million hits, and you can start making money. I don't know how much, but you can start making money. The web has opened up a whole lot of opportunities. You guys will be my bosses one day because you guys know the web and the internet and the social media. You're way more advanced at that than we are because we didn't grow up with that. I grew up with video. I'm really advanced in video, you know, because I knew TV, and that's how I grew up, watching TV, and so I know. Now there's a couple things that you'll never learn in school that I think that is hard. You'll never learn how to be creative in school. So anybody with a creative mind will do great in this business, but you're not going to learn it in school. You can't teach creativity and style. I think you're bred with it. Or great design. A lot of my great designers that I've seen and worked with in my lifetime, some of them have never had formal design training. They just have an eye for it, and it's hard to teach that. But if you have an eye for it, there's certain people that you just know. So if you have an eye for it and you want to do production and stuff, there will be jobs because it's hard to teach creativity. I don't know how, some people just have it. I've always said it, you either have it or you don't. You either have an eye for this or you don't. So that's my big, and you guys all know if you have an eye. You're all sitting there and going, I got an eye for this. I know what I'm doing. You know if you could do it. You just know. It's an innate ability. So I started in Chicago, and in Chicago, I'm born and bred in Chicago. That's probably why I'm still in Chicago. My family's here. I love Chicago, but then I hate it in the winter. So every now and then I have that moment of like, oh man, why am I here, you know? It's that city you love to hate, you know? It is. I mean, you just love to hate Chicago. We got the Cubs, every now and then we get the Blackhawks. You know, I've been waiting all my lifetime. I will be waiting all my lifetime for the Cubs to win the World Series. My dad died. I don't think this is going to happen. I really don't. But anyway, good luck to WLS. Hopefully the Cubs will have a good season, you know? And that's my story, so I will pass it on.
Thank you, Victoria. Let me say, as you can see, I am not making any formal introductions for each of the panelists because part of what I expect of them is for them really to be introducing themselves by telling you what their background has been. So I'm saving you that time. Sarah is a producer of Good Day Chicago. Hope everybody has watched that or will after today. And so Sarah, we'd like to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing this morning?
Good.
Good, good. Well, I'm not from Chicago. I've actually been here a year. Like he said, I'm the 5 a.m. morning producer at Good Day Chicago over at Fox 32, just right down the street on Michigan. So my journey is I'm actually from Texas. So born and raised in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. I went to the University of North Texas. Decided really in high school, I think it was my junior year, that I wanted to really do television, really devote my time and focus, and just, I'm going to school for, TV, communications, journalism, and that's what I did. So my junior year, we had, instead of having like announcements, we had we had like an actual newscast, a 5-minute newscast, and I was in awe, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to inform, educate, and entertain people. And so it started there at my high school. I went to the University of North Texas, hit the ground running. I got involved at our station there, NTTV. So I don't know if you're mostly juniors or sophomores or if there's some freshmen, but definitely if there's a college, station at your university, definitely get involved. I mean, I did everything from editing to audio to reporting to eventually knowing that I wanted to produce. And from there, I graduated, and when you graduate, it's just like, okay, what now? It's kind of like this big unknown. Like you've went through grade school, you've went through high school, you've now went through college, now you are on your own. You have to make your decisions, you have to kind of figure out your own road from there. So I didn't get a job straight out of college. It was hard. I remember I actually was flown out to Tucson, Arizona, KVOA, out there, and I didn't have any experience. I think it was market 64. They actually, ended up going with someone with more experience, had a couple of years. And so I kind of had to figure out, okay, I didn't get that job, keep applying, and I did. And really, it all kind of turned around for me, and I really started getting a lot of interviews is when I changed my cover letter. Everyone that called me after that for an interview pointed out, like, your cover letter was amazing. That's why you stood out. That's why we called you. So really, a recommendation I give everyone is really, if your professors are telling you, like, focus on your cover letter, do that. It really makes a difference. And if your cover letter stands out, you'll get that call, you'll get that interview, and hopefully, get your first job. So I actually started out in South Dakota, Sioux Falls, the biggest station, or the biggest city in South Dakota, market 116, 118. I started out there as a morning producer, did some on-air things, and then was there for 2.5 years. Again, started applying for jobs, got a call, and I applied for the producer position here at Chicago thinking, I'm probably not going to get that job. It was my fantasy job, and I actually ended up getting the job. I got a call and went through the entire interview process, and and I was actually interviewing with some more mid-markets, Oklahoma, Vegas, and actually got a few offers, and of course, went with Chicago. So I came here, and I've been here now for a year. Making such a big jump is challenging, definitely. So like Vicki said, you have to be adaptable. I mean, I'm from Texas, from Dallas, a big city, kind of buckled down and went to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I'd never been to South Dakota in my life before moving there, to now going to Chicago. So definitely be adaptable, like Vicki said too, really be able to take criticism. News is a hard business. You don't always get compliments every day. They just tell you how it is, and you just have to really work hard, really be adaptable, and really be willing to learn something different every day, because you will. And so I'm here now and loving it, love Chicago, glad I'm here. And if you have any questions afterwards, please ask, and that is my story.
I have a question. I can't wait till the end. How do you handle getting up at 4 in the morning or showing up for work at 4 in the morning?
Well, I actually go to work at 10:30 at night. So I produce a 5
Well, okay.
a.m.
So
show.
when do you go home?
I go home at 6 in the morning. So my schedule, as far as I sleep during the day. So yesterday when it was beautiful outside, I was sleeping. So I sleep during the day. I wake up at 7 o'clock. I get online. I look at, the Tribune, sometimes USA Today, everything. I just kind of scavenge the internet and look for everything that's going on. Look at, story ideas, things I can do, talkers for the anchors. And then I go in at about 10:30, and build the show, put it together, go on air at 5, and then I'm normally out the door by 6:30. So it's, challenging, and I did the morning show in Sioux Falls as well. So I've been doing mornings for almost now 3.5, 4 years. And it wasn't really too long. I was sitting right where you were sitting. I mean, I've been in this business for only 4 years. So I get it. And if you have questions, please ask, because I understand how it could be challenging entering the workforce, especially in TV. So.
Well, there are a couple of points. The reason I asked, I wanted to make the point. This is a business that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, your birthday, your anniversary, whatever it is. This is a business that you have to be dedicated to. And again, you have to say to yourself, when I talk about what you need to be successful, you have to sit there and say to yourself, how would I react if someone offered me a job that started at 10:30 at night and went till 6 in the morning? The other thing is, you out of school 4 years. There's a lesson in that. 4 years and a wonderful job, except for those hours, I guess.
Very true.
And the other point that I think you made so well, and this is what I mean, listen to these messages, because they may not make a big deal of it, but it's important. Cover letter. Yeah. Cover letter, she feels, is what opened the door. And I'm sure back at school they'll give you some ideas. Think about it. Look for, you can look online actually to see other cover letters that have been used. Cover letter. Now, is there anyone in the room interested in making money? Oh, I just wondered. Sales is an area that there's not a lot of emphasis in school about the sales position and the sales opportunities in communications. But now we're going to hear about sales. Emily?
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone going? We're hanging in there? Great. So I'm Emily. I'm actually from Chicago, the South Side. Go White Sox. Born and raised, and like other people here, I didn't want to leave. Everyone's like, do small market. I'm like, no, I don't want to. So I currently right now work for NBC I work with the local sales team, but I also work with the national sales team in New York. So I'm doing a little bit of both, where that's a little tougher because obviously they're not in your office, so you're always emailing, on the phone, trying to take care of things. So I'm a client service representative, which a lot of people are like, what is that? So I'm in charge of booking all the advertisement that you see on Channel 5. So you see these commercials, how did they get there? I'm booking them. So I work with a lot of the account managers and the account executives, and we work as a team, and I'm a liaison between the agency and the account executives. They make the deal, they give it to me, I check it over, I input it in the system, and then I work with traffic to make sure everything gets on the air. We're working with make goods. If spots get bumped because we're overbooked, where can we put these back in so the agency is happy? We're also working with making sure the length is right, the rate's right, because it's a lot of money. Like right now doing the Blackhawks, like if you miss one spot, like there goes $30,000, like you're in trouble. So you have to have a really key eye and a big attention to detail when it comes to this. So I just graduated like 3 years ago. Yeah, now it doesn't seem that long ago. So it was not exactly what I wanted to do. I was always like, oh, production and sports reporting, but I got an internship in Sydney, Australia, working with a radio and TV team. It was called National or Regional Media Works. And I was so nervous. I was like, sales? I know nothing about sales. Like, you don't learn sales in school. Like, what am I going to do? They're like, give it a chance. And I really did enjoy it. I'm super organized and sometimes OCD about it. You could ask my roommate. She calls me Monica from Friends.
They're like, what?
I know. So it was I really enjoyed it. And then after that, I never thought that I would like something like that. So again, if you have an internship opportunity, take it, because you realize you might actually like something like this. Then I actually had an internship here at WLS AM for programming, so I was helping produce the morning show, which I really loved too. So going out of college, I had 2 great internships under my belt, which is super helpful. So like I said, take internships, even if they're part-time and they're not paid. Both of mine were not paid. And the people in Australia also thought that was insane, which we here in the United States is not. It's just getting the experience under your belt. So 2 months out of school, I got a job with iHeart Radio, which is weird because it was for Clear Channel for me too, and the national sales team as an assistant. And it was a lot of work, and it taught me so much. And the great thing about being an assistant at iHeart, they know that you're not there for the long run. They know you're there to get experience under your belt, and they know like you're going to leave for a better opportunity, which is really great. So it's not awkward after 2 years, a year and a half, that you want to try something more. They do really want the best for you. So after a year and a half, I got the job at NBC as a client service rep. And now I'm trying to work my way up, hopefully in sales or digital planning. My advice to you for getting out there, with iHeartRadio, I actually got the VP's name from someone that knew someone, and there wasn't even any job openings, and I just asked, I was like, hey, I just graduated college, do you have any radio advice for me? I'm looking to get into the industry. So he's like, come in and talk to me. So we talked, I just wanted advice. Like, I know there wasn't any openings. An opening came open. He's like, hey, I think you'd be a great candidate. Come out for the position. So again, a good cover letter, a resume. And if you're interested in a job, then try to get a hold of someone in HR and just ask if you could come in and take a tour or talk to someone that's in the environment that you're working in and just ask for advice, because then they'll remember your name. And then, lucky me, I was able to get in as soon as I did. So that's my advice. Also, enter programs. Again, I know a lot of you probably know about the ICPA, Illinois College Press Association. Anyone? Columbia? Yeah, you guys usually win that every year. So that was helpful because I didn't think my projects were good enough. I did a lot of editing too. And my college professor actually entered my project without me knowing, and I won. And so that was also a great thing to have under your belt too, or on your resume. Because I feel sometimes it's hard in production, like, what did you learn? Like, yeah, you could learn, and I have these pieces, but having also like awards under your belt is, I think, helpful, and it shows that you worked really hard at what you did. So I think that's it. Good luck to everyone.
How many of you are interning or have interned? Okay. They got it. You've got to intern. You've got to intern. You've got to intern. I take a message here. 3 words. 3 words. Remember them. Keep your options open. You took a job you didn't really want to at first. You love it, or it led to a job that you love. Keep your options open. If there's an opportunity at a job that isn't really what you think you want to do, if it gets you in the door, take it. And then as your options open up, you have the chance and the opportunity to move from one thing to another. And the other interesting thing is that sometimes the job that you get to have, which isn't what you wanted, turns out to be the job that you are very happy and wanted, but you don't realize it. So, and sales is a place to make money. That's why I ask the question. The account executives, the people who are out selling the advertising, $30,000 for a 30-second announcement?
Yeah. Football's a lot.
That's that tells you the kind of money that's involved as far as the station is concerned. Doesn't mean the salesman gets $30,000, but it's an area that offers opportunity. And it's an area that really is not emphasized very much in the schools and colleges. So we have another producer. Margaret, you're on.
Oh, I'm on. Okay. Well, I love that he just said another producer because that's one thing I want to start with. I have found that word, producer, to mean a different thing at every entity, to every person you say it to. I have friends who are at ad agencies and they're a producer. I'm a producer at a station. People who are producers at a news station versus I've been a producer at a PBS station versus being a producer in the capacity I am now. It means so many different things. So I think it's interesting that he said another producer because we all do such a range of things. So it's always interesting to sort of see what different words mean to different media entities. So since we've been talking about, I guess, how long we've been out of school, I've been out of school for 6 years now, which, again, I'm echoing what you say. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but yes, 6 years. I'm from Kansas City originally. I went to Mizzou, to the University of Missouri School of Journalism. Cool thing about Mizzou, from my perspective, it was certainly trial by fire because all the students don't work at a student news station. The NBC affiliate in Columbia, Missouri, we're all reporters there. So you're reporting at the state capitol. You're not on the hook just to other students. You are reporting to the community. So if you get a fact error or a misspelling or anything of that nature, it's a real newscast. So we certainly had a steep learning curve, but it's paid off for me in the long run. I really enjoyed it. So I was a reporter there while I was in school. And again, I get to this sort of junction between reporter and producer. I really went on kind of the more reporter track because to me, producer in the news capacity, at least in the way that I was trained, was just a very organizational, put together the rundown. And I came into this business from this creativity perspective. I always loved to write, to read literature. I think if I would have had my way, I would have majored in literature, but your parents are like, okay, try something that could be lucrative. So I went the way of journalism, and I'm not sure how, yeah, right? That's a joke. I ended up in journalism thinking that would be a great way to turn sort of my skill set for writing and creativity and utilize that. And I'm not sure, people ask me to this day, like, and you stumbled into TV, how? Not quite sure, but did major in radio TV, worked as a reporter while I was in school. And then internship. While I was in school, I interned at the PBS affiliate in St. Louis. And turns out when I graduated, I got hired right on there. So I would like to echo what my colleagues up here are saying. It was a really tremendous opportunity for me. Because when I got out of school, I was hired as an associate producer on a national documentary series that PBS was working on. We did it out of St. Louis, but so documentary after doing news was a really different change. And again, producer in that capacity was different than producer in news. So I worked as an associate producer on a documentary about immigration, actually, a 3-hour series, and then I sort of transitioned and came on full-time as a producer at that station. And our GM kind of said we want to do a new news and public affairs program. We haven't had a brand new show and started one in a number of years. We don't know what we want it to be, but we're going to have you take it over. So I got to work with someone in designing the set. I got to help hire the host. It was a really, really cool opportunity. And we used Google Hangout. We used a lot of tools to be able to incorporate social media. So that was really great experience, and I loved working there. I was there for about 5 years, and one of my first pieces of advice would certainly be connections. Absolutely, like working who you know. And you don't even know who you know. You have such a powerful network just in your family and your friends and your professors. Here's how I got my job in Chicago. And I've just been in Chicago, for about 8 months now. years ago, I knew I wanted to be in Chicago, so I reached out to someone on LinkedIn who I knew went to Mizzou. We call it the Mizzou Mafia. There's a pretty good journalism connection there at a lot of the major stations and media entities across the country. So I reached out on LinkedIn to somebody who is an executive producer here years ago, like right when I graduated, like I want to be in Chicago. Well, that paid off 5 years later when they had an opening and he reached back out to me. So if I am applying for a job or I know I'm interested in a certain station, I get on LinkedIn, I type in that company, and I look at second connections. Oh, so my uncle's connected to the GM there. Uncle Frank, how do you, oh, he was a fraternity brother of mine, let me connect you. That has happened to me many times, and I've told other people that trick, it always works. So look, you don't know who you know. You don't know who the people that you know. The people you'll meet here today, and I would encourage you guys, absolutely come talk to me after this. I'm happy to connect to you. A lot of people are so impressed by all of you young people. I talked to a couple of you before this began. We really want to help you. So work the connections and don't be afraid, like Emily was just saying. So I'd encourage you to work your connections and explore connections you might not know you had. So now here in Chicago, since October, I have been working at Oakbrook Productions, which is a division of Tribune Media. We produce all the shows that air on WGN, not all, I shouldn't say, many of the shows that air on WGN that are not news, that are more feature-y, more entertainment, lifestyle. So our group produces Chicago's Best, a food show, Living Healthy Chicago, which is what I produce, which is a lot of fitness and nutrition, but a lot of serious health reporting as well, and Weekend Workbench, which is like a DIY show. So it's a very different, where up until I moved here, I was essentially covering Ferguson for PBS, and now I'm doing like a whole different, so again, producer, from my vantage point, is a lot of reporting. I go out with a videographer, I interview people, and I do the writing, and I edit. I'm impressed by you guys and your ability to do all of those things, because the more skills you have, and to the point you were making in our introduction, you can absolutely, I've done it, turn the job that you're not sure you want into the job you want. You'd be so surprised how many employers want to capitalize and utilize the awesome skill sets you guys have and the passion. If you're willing to work hard and bring things to the table, you really can turn any job into the job that you want. I'm not saying like everything is perfectly pleasant. You'll absolutely put in a lot of hours and do a lot of tasks that you don't really enjoy, but it will be to make room for things you enjoy. I think the biggest piece of advice, so connections, absolutely connections. I think what I want to say is that this is a human business. It's about making connections with other people. It's about caring about the stories you're doing. I kind of, on the days where it's really hard, I say, gosh, am I privileged or what that the guy who beat cancer wants to sit me on his couch and tell me a story that this family who experienced infertility, it will share their journey and make me a cup of coffee. Like, how entrusting are people to us with their stories, right? And so if you can genuinely care about what you're reporting on, the people around you, I think, just care. Frankly, I've done well just connecting with other people. And I also think curiosity, real genuine curiosity. So not what should I be asking this person? Because sometimes I think we're like, right, like, okay, did I ask this? What do you actually want to know? What is that person sitting on the couch going to want to know? I'm always tremendously impressed by people who ask good questions and think differently. So my former boss always said, like, be interested and interesting. So I love that. So curiosity to me is the most impressive trait. Genuine curiosity. So connections, curiosity, and at the end of the day, like, this business is about people. And again, I would like to encourage everybody, I'll be around, happy to talk to any of you afterwards.
Thank you. I would just emphasize the idea of networking. And networking, get to know your mailman, because your mailman's cousin might be the program director at a radio station. So, friends, family, colleagues, fellow back at school, people here, get to know each other. You may be sitting next to your boss 5 years from now, or hopefully. Internships, if you have part-time job, you might be working checking out customers at a grocery store. Get to know some of the people the regular customers who come through. You don't know that their Uncle Joe is working at a television station or an advertising agency. Professors, certainly. A lot of professors have worked in the business before or while they're teaching and have connections in the business. And you may play touch football down on the field, athletic field or whatever. People just that you come across either with common interests or hobbies or whatever. Don't think just I've got to make my contacts through internships and professors. The world is filled with people that you should be networking with. Next, John, again. Want to do it now? Okay, we're going to do the interview now. He's my boss.
Producer.
Right.
Lou, I'll introduce.
Oh, well, excuse me. Get out of your way.
So while we set up the chairs, let me ask you, who owns WSAW-TV? If you don't know the answer, that's one of the things that you should find out, because you have station groups who may own 20-plus stations, and there are opportunities there. You start at one, and then you have a chance to jump to another. So while they settle in, let me introduce the news director from WSAW-TV and tell you they're owned by Gray Television. If you had been reading the trades this week, you would have read that CBS struck a deal with a number of their owner groups, including Gray, for what will eventually be part of the TV Anywhere, Everywhere model. Again, you can pick that up in the trades. But Jessica Lashevsky is the news director there. She previously worked for 8 years at WISC in Madison. And she has agreed to come in and do the interview today. We've told her to turn this into an actual interview, no softball questions. But we also want to be mindful that Molly Brewer, who is a senior at Loyola in Chicago and a broadcast journalism major, has 2 internships under her belt. She is a graduating senior in May, so wow, what a nice time to be doing one more mock interview. Jessica, Molly, thank you.
Thank you. So Molly and I, we did talk earlier this week, and we decided to treat this basically as a second interview. So she's applied for the job, gotten on my radar. We've had a phone interview, and at this point I've decided to bring her into the station for an in-person interview to check things out and to see if we think she'd be a good fit to work in our newsroom and if it's a place where she would like to be. So that's where we're starting off. The position that she's applying for is a multimedia journalist, so backpack journalist, and that's where we start.
Thank you.
So Molly, one of the first things that I would like to ask you today, as I look at your resume and where you want to be, we know you want this job, but tell me how it will help propel you forward in your career.
So I think that especially with this job, being a multimedia backpack journalist, that kind of experience is something that you don't get it very often. You do several different jobs all in one. It includes reporting, it includes writing, it includes producing and filming yourself. And while that is incredibly difficult, I think I know we've gotten a lot of experience with that at our schooling. And we have our own newscast, Studio 51 Chicago, where we go out with our own backpack cameras, we shoot it ourselves, we write it ourselves, we report it ourselves, then we come back, we anchor it ourselves, and produce the entire show. And I think that kind of experience is something that I really want, because that's how you figure out what your interests are and you build your skills on several different levels.
And you're right, you are wearing a lot of hats. So which hat are you most looking forward to wearing, and which one might you need a little bit of help with?
So I'm most looking forward to wearing the reporter hat. That's my passion, is telling people stories, being an advocate for the community, getting to know people on a much deeper level than just a passing by. I just love looking for something that by sharing it, you can make a difference in the community and in that person's life. So I think reporting is definitely my passion. A hat that I could use a little improvement on, definitely the more technical side. I can always hone in my camera skills. I think that's something that, especially with multimedia backpack journalism, you've got the one thing that you're super passionate about, but you obviously have to hone your skills in the rest of those assets. So the camera part is definitely something that I'm constantly working to improve on. Class helps, our newscast helps, and just further practice in the future will definitely help.
One of the things that you mentioned that you really enjoy about a good story is producing a story with tangible results. Explain to me what you mean by that and a good example of a story that produced a tangible result.
Yeah, so what I mean by that, and a little background, my internships, I've been in the investigative unit at both Channel 2 here in Chicago, and I'm currently in the investigative unit at Channel 5 with Lisa Parker and Robin Green. And what I love so much about that is the stories that they produce and report. You create a tangible product at the end. Someone comes to you with a problem, whether it's parking tickets, or we recently did something where a family, their daughter unfortunately passed away at 9 years old, and their American Airlines would not refund their ticket. So we did a story on it because they specifically say on their website that, hey, we'll refund your ticket if you can provide a death certificate. And because of the story that we produced and reported and that I assisted with, American Airlines did refund the ticket, and they were able to kind of move on past that. And I think that especially in small markets too, like the one in Wausau, Wisconsin, really being an advocate for the community in that kind of regard and creating tangible product and change is something that I'm really passionate about.
What did you learn from that experience in terms of how did you feel when you accomplished the goal for getting that tangible result, and how will you use this experience moving forward to make sure you're doing that each and every time in every story that you tell?
Right. So I think we all know this because this is obviously an industry that we're all passionate about. But to a lot of people, I don't know that they see journalism as often as being more than just a talking head. You know, they don't see that you're making a difference. And when being a part of a story like that and the others that I've gotten the chance to work on at my 2 internships, it's really kind of humbled me and provided me with an insight to just the humanitarianism that goes into being a journalist and getting to get in touch with people on such a deep level. Everything from helping track them down for the reporters that I work for, to doing preliminary interviews, collecting B-roll, going to their homes, and you get to get in touch with them on a much more humanistic level than I think people realize. And even myself, until I got the chance to do that, I don't think I realized it. And now that I have done that, I've found that making that change is what I want to do in the future. And I think on future stories, making sure that I really understand the humanistic aspect and what it means to that individual person is really what's going to bring in the story and make it more personal. So.
You have a lot of great experience on your resume in terms of the different types of internships that you've had. And one of your first experiences, you started in print, working for your campus newspaper. So at what point did you decide to switch and emphasize broadcast journalism and decide that that was the path you wanted to take?
So I'm lucky that our university has a lot of different outlets to work in journalism. And I did start with our newspaper, and I was the assistant news editor, and I loved that. I loved getting to know the campus in that way. But the classes that I've taken that involved doing all sorts of journalism, we did reporting and writing across platforms is a class that we have where you learn broadcast writing, print writing, producing, basically everything in one short semester. And I found that the medium that broadcast offers, it's so visual and entertaining. And I almost find that with broadcast, you get to reach out and touch people's lives on a more personal level solely because of the visual aspect. I think that it's more personal and you connect with people in a different way, and I truly enjoy that.
Social media has really added to and changed the way that we've gathered news and shared news and engaged with our viewers. talk about how you use social media platforms in terms of news gathering and also news sharing.
Yeah, so social media is huge in college, regardless of what your line of work is. But I've found that in journalism, it truly propels what you want to do. And especially this last year, I've kind of gone through and created that professional Twitter account that they're always telling you to create, making your Instagram both work and showing what you do in your personal life, just to kind of give everyone a feel of who you are as a person. I've definitely started to use Twitter a little bit more on the professional side. I know at my internship, if I'm out on a story, I'll tweet, hey, I'm with this reporter at this time covering this. Tune in to NBC5 for more. And it's really awesome because every morning at the meetings, we go in and they talk about what's trending on Twitter now. And then I try to push that for that day. And I think that it's the best way for you to propel yourself and the people around you. I've noticed that when you advocate for other people on Twitter, you get that right back. And that's the best way to build my network.
Are you using the same approach on each of the platforms that you mentioned?
So I think Twitter, I do more for the instantaneous. Definitely, I'm on site. This is what's happening. Tune in for more. Check back later. Instagram, I try to do a little bit more like, it's a beautiful day. Like, look what we're out doing right now kind of thing. Facebook, I definitely use a lot to share stories. If there's a story written by a friend of mine that I think is outstanding, I'll share it. If there's any kind of, anytime that we come out with a new investigative story, I'll share that as well. I think Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, they all have very different followings as far as my social connections go, and I'm still kind of working to build those. LinkedIn, I've also jumped in on over the last 2 years. I've really tried to build that up and make connections. So they all kind of vary as far as the people that I have following and people that I follow. I'd say Twitter is the one that I try to rely on most. Facebook's a little more personal. I don't really add people if I don't know them, but yeah.
It really does come down to knowing your audience and
Yes.
knowing how to reach them, of course. One of the really exciting conversations that is happening industry-wide right now is drones and how journalists use them. So when you think about how a drone could be used as a reporting tool, what excites you most about that, and what do we need to be careful of?
So I think drones, that's a huge topic right now. And personally, I do see a lot of use for them. And I think that what I think is so awesome about drones is the different platforms you can use them on. Anything from a forest fire in California, and you can send the drone in. If there's a potentially dangerous situation, which I know is just every news market has them, drones are definitely useful to send in. You don't have to put your reporters' lives at risk. They can still do the same level of reporting without putting their own lives at risk. I think that the risks with drones, you obviously have to be careful, and this is, I'm finding, we've talked about it a lot in class, everything these days as far as privacy goes is very scary, and everything is so open. We were talking about periscoping earlier, just everything's live. I think drones, you really have to know your ethical boundaries, and you can't cross them. And, you have to be very, very aware of the laws in the area and what you can and cannot go into. And I think that that's just something that it's new and it's exciting. But as journalists, we have, in my opinion, maybe more responsibility than before some of these advances came out.
And as you look to settle into a new role in a new community, we want to make sure you're in a position where you can build sources and really feel invested and be in a position where you can tell better stories because you really understand the community. So as a newcomer to Wausau, what would you do first to get to know the area and immerse yourself and start to build contacts so you have people to turn to for information about stories and people can come to you with story ideas?
I think that's a great question because that's something where now that I've made the decision, like I'm going to go wherever I need to go to be a reporter, that's something you have to consider is I've never been to Wausau. And in order to really immerse yourself in the community as well as just feel comfortable because, hey, my whole life is here right now. I know that picking up and moving to somewhere else, I'm going to first of all, join whatever's in the area, whether that's, yoga, Pilates. I'm going to go out and do the 5Ks that happen and try to meet as many people as possible, as well as just kind of make myself comfortable in a new area. And I think through doing those things in the community, whether it is the 5K that people do on the weekends or, gardening to improve the betterment of the environment and everything around, just doing things with people in the community and immersing myself that way is how I plan on starting a network and connecting, as well as just being open and never really saying no to an opportunity, especially because it is a new place and any opportunity there would be an awesome one. So.
Good. One last question.
Yeah.
Hopefully you've had a chance to check out our website, our social platforms, maybe even a newscast through live stream. So what were your first impressions? What did you like? What might we be able to improve?
So I definitely think that what I love about the small market in Wisconsin is that it's still Midwest, and I come from Columbus, Ohio. I've gone to school in Chicago. I've never left the Midwest, and telling Midwest stories, whether it's adversities, triumphs, whatever it is really important to me. And what I love about the newscast that you all hold is you do local stories, whether it's the crime report. I saw one on a stabbing from the other night, or you also cover the statewide stories, the governor, anything having to do with the larger universities. I think that it's a great combination of local and as well as larger stories that impact the community. I noticed that you localized the dog flu piece, and we're doing that here in Chicago. And I think that that's one of those things where you can take something large that's nationwide or in the Midwest and make it more local. So that's definitely something that I look forward to working on.
Good. And normally at this point I ask what questions you have for me. So I don't know, do we have time for that or?
Probably later on.
Okay. So thank you. Very nice job, Molly.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Does Molly get the job? Yes. Okay. Wonderful presentation, and it gives you some idea of what you go through if you haven't already. And remember, this was the second interview. She had already passed the first test, and I'll hire her. Next, nobody starts out as the boss. And you start somewhere and you work your way up, and it's stage by stage, bit by bit, and it's competitive, and you finally are able to reach the top of whatever it is that you seek. And to be the president and general manager of a television station that's a wonderful station in the third market in the United States is an achievement. And next we're going to hear from our host and the president of this station. Before that, Ed, I just want to say again, John,
yeah.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Of course.
Thank you. Please convey it to all the members of your staff who have been just wonderful. We really appreciate being here, and it's a wonderful thing. So for all these panelists, they could be in bed too, But thank you very, very much. So let's hear your story.
Well, thank you, Dick. Lou.
Hey.
No, thank you. Hey, be rest assured that your interview is not going to go that smoothly. That was terrific. Molly did a great job, but it's not going to be quite that smooth. It was terrific. Molly, how do you think you did?
Better than I expected.
Okay. Would you have changed any of your answers, looking back on it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
I asked those two questions. Those are my two favorite questions to end an interview. I always ask the candidate how they think they did in an interview, and I always ask, okay, if you could go back and change one of your answers, what would it be? So I'm always curious to see how they react to those questions, because I think it kind of knocks them off balance a little bit, and it's just always good to get their sense of how they think it went. And usually we're on the same page, but sometimes if they say, boy, I really blew this interview, I'm always curious to see if they have that much confidence to be able to say that. That's actually a really good thing for me. So everybody's talking about how long they've been out of school. I've been out of school 27 years, I think. I don't know how I got to be the old guy on the panel. Doug, how'd that happen, you know? How old are you? How old are you, by the way?
48.
48? I am the old guy. I'm 49, so I am the old guy on the panel. Jesus. I really don't know how that happened. I started out doing what Emily is doing for MAQ. I was doing it for CBS Network. I was a planning analyst for them, which was their word for, cell service person. It was a research position. It was an analyst. I mean, it's an analyst. I was a researcher. I looked at their thousands and the audience deliveries and put it together and did under delivery weight, which is, I'm sure, something you do, as well as kind of built sales packages for the account executives to go out and sell. So that's how I started out, and that was 25 years ago for CBS. And unlike Roz, I'm in my 5th house in my career. I've moved my wife 5 times, which she loves me for that, but she tells me that this is pretty much it. She's done moving, which is great. Probably the worst time was when I moved her when she was 7 months pregnant, and we were 2 weeks early, and we had just started just getting to know our new doctor there. And she went into labor on December 31st, and we didn't know where the hospital was, so we just kind of drove around and found it. I'm not kidding. I took the wrong exit, but anyway, that's more of an aside than anything else. But I do want to echo what Lou said. You know, the fact that you're here this morning, the fact that you gave up a Saturday morning is just terrific. I'm going to try to keep my comments brief because I want to get to your questions, because I think that's probably the best part of this program. I'm reminded, and I saw Dick and Lou before, and I was at NC State down running a station down in Raleigh, WTVD, and we had this same panel, similar room. And don't ask this question because it drives me crazy. A young woman, she was so earnest and so nice, and I kind of took her head off because she was 21 or 22 years old, and she asked about work-life balance. And I'm like, are you crazy? You don't get to have work-life balance. You're 21 years old. And I remember that so clearly because I really felt guilty afterwards, and I tried to find her afterwards and apologized. But it was really, because you really don't. In this business, we're looking for the people that are going to work the overnights, that are going to start at 10 a.m., that aren't going to care what shift they are, that are going to give up their Saturday mornings. And sometimes how many of you want to be in front of the camera, by the way? Okay. Sometimes my news director and I will tag team on the interview, and we have a reporter come in, and one of my news director's favorite questions is, what kind of reporting you want to do. And every reporter kind of answers that the same way, and you get the sense, and I'm probably dating myself, but, everybody wants to be that Charles Osgood piece, and they want to do CBS Sunday Morning, and it's fantastic. But really what we're looking for is that person who's going to say, boy, I really want to get in front of yellow crime tape and report the news, or I want to report on that trailer park fire. That's a lot of what you're going to be doing. So don't make the mistake in an interview and say, boy, I really want to do this type of journalism, or I really love documentary styles or things like that. We know that. Everybody loves that. That's your dream job. We get it, But you want to be that aggressive person that says, you know what? I don't care what the story is. I want to be in the A block. That's what I want to be. I don't care what the story is. You put me in the A block of your news. That's the story I want, regardless of what it is. And that's really the type of person we're going to be looking for, particularly on the level you're going to be going in. It's great. We all know. We all love to make great TV. We get it. But we want that person who's aggressive enough to say, just give me the lead story, give me the A block. Because everything else is relegated, to something else. If you're not in the A block, that's really where you want to be. I took some notes along here as well, so forgive me. I love the comment about Sarah made about cover letters, because as somebody who's been in this business for a while, it's not so much the cover letter, but do something different to distinguish yourself, please. Whether that's a traditional cover letter, don't underestimate the value of snail mail. It's, you blow through, I get 150, 200, sometimes 300 emails a day. You know, it's very easy to delete an email. But my assistant, fortunate enough to have one, she goes through my mail, she creates a little folder for me, and she says, you know, here's where I get my mail. And if there's a letter in there, I read it. You know, so don't underestimate the value of this snail mail, because it ends up on my desk and I take the time to go through it on a different level. So it's very important to do some of those things. The other piece of really practical advice, you're going to see job listings that say no phone calls, please. If you're a reporter, ignore that. If you want to get into sales, ignore it. They don't really mean it. And I'm not kidding. That's just a way to get the first cut of people who really don't want the job out of them. So that's going to back, and if you do that 10 times, it's going to backfire on you twice. All right? So just know that. But as a general rule, ignore it. You know, I think that's really practical and important. What other pearls of wisdom can I impart in a short time? I guess that's about it. I mean, we talked about relationships a lot. I think that's important. I, too, my dad's fraternity brother got me the first interview at CBS. So that's interesting to hear that. It does come full circle. I'm actually having lunch with him next week because I've never, and he's running Fox Network sales here in Chicago. His name is Dan Rank, terrific guy, and it's the very first opportunity that I've had to take the guy to lunch and to thank him, which is kind of funny. But that's it. I really want to get to your questions. And hey, for those of you, I will give out my email address, John, john.h.idler, I-D-L-E-R, @abc.com. There's a lot of you, so if I don't get back to you right away, forgive me, but I will try. If you have a question that you don't get to today, or you don't want to pick my brain or see who you can talk to, we can certainly make that happen. So I'll pass the microphone to Michelle. Thank you for being so generous. I know you're a reporter and you're dying to grab the mic.
I need that.
Hi, my name is Michelle. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. In front of the camera, and Michelle has won 6 regional Emmys.
I was denied you your introduction. I'm sorry.
And also a very coveted award, the Edward R. Murrow Award. So here's an award winner, and in front of the cameras, Michelle.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I anchor the 6 and 10 o'clock newscast at the CBS affiliate in Madison, Wisconsin. We call it a legacy station there. And, you know, everyone here has been talking about how long they've been out of school. I've been out of school for about 13 years. And I took maybe the more traditional route. I started out in a small market. I started out in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is a great place to start because it has a beach. And they pay you in sunshine. It's wonderful. And then I moved to Springfield, Missouri, and worked there for 8 years. And then went back to North Carolina for about 3 years. And then now I've been in Madison for almost 2. So when I graduated school, I actually did not think that I was going to be on air. I went to school for producing. And I sent out 2 tapes. We had to report in school as well. So I sent out 2 tapes, and that was the first job that I got, was a reporting job. And my first job, I reported, I shot my own stuff, I edited my own stuff, and we barely did the web back then, which is kind of funny now. And then when I went to Missouri, you know, I thought that I was like stepping up in the world, so I never had to shoot for myself. And then the industry really changed. A lot of my friends were losing their jobs. A lot of people got laid off just because of the economy. So we all started shooting for ourselves and editing and really changing the way we did news and the way we gathered information. Then you throw in social media, and it's not just like, hey, I'm partying on the weekends on Facebook. That's what it used to be. Facebook was before, I was after Facebook, but I mean, that's what you see with young people, or you used to see with young people, and now it's really become something that we use as a news gathering and a news information tool. So, yeah, so it was really interesting how things have changed. And even when I was the evening anchor, I started shooting my own stuff. And it wasn't really because I had to. It was because I wanted to. That's really where the industry has gone. And I feel like if you are someone who doesn't want to do the work, then you need to find a really good 9-to-5 job somewhere else doing something that is not the same as this, because if you're not willing to put in the effort, it's going to be really hard for you to succeed. For me, we were talking about A blocks. I mean, that was the stuff that I did as a reporter. I always wanted to fight for the lead. It didn't matter if it was Springfield, Missouri or Wilmington, North Carolina. There's always great news going on, and you always have to do enterprise stories, which means that you're coming up with your own ideas. And also, there are a lot of crime stories that you have to do. Live shots, you want it to be active. You want to come up with like all these brilliant ideas. You want to volunteer yourself to be live at noon, 5, and 6. And hey, I'll write a VOSOT for 10. I mean, those are the things that I did as a general assignment reporter. And then I had the opportunity to start anchoring, which I thought was something that maybe I didn't want to do, but I've done it now for the last, 7 years, and have really enjoyed it. It's interesting because you want to be a seasoned journalist as an anchor. You want to help lead some of the initiatives that are going on in your newsroom. It's not just about smiling and reading the prompter. It's about being an ambassador for your station, sometimes an ambassador for the city that you live in. Did you guys watch the Final Four? Anyone a Badger fan? We got to, yeah. We got to go to Indianapolis, which is you think it's a great gig, but we worked 7 days straight. We usually went to bed around 2 in the morning and got up at 7 in the morning. So, the funny thing is everyone's like, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, it is a lot of fun. You have to always say that it was a lot of fun, but it's grueling work, to be honest. You don't want to insult anyone, because a lot of people would, spend thousands of dollars to go to the Final Four, but in reality, I was kind of dreading it, because it was painful. And then when we lost at the end, it was even more painful. For me, I report as much as I can. I volunteer to shoot as much as I can. I edit as much as I can. But we have some really talented photographers also who do that too. So it just kind of depends on the situation. But my boss really enjoys the fact that I will volunteer to do that work. I kind of do a lot with our social pages, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google+, YouTube. We use Bamboozer and Ustream sometimes. I'm always trying to be live streaming at some point just because of transparency. So if there's a breaking news situation, and I will volunteer to go out and do the live shot, maybe field anchor if it's a really big story. I like to just live stream, because then everyone in my newsroom sees what I'm seeing. They're seeing it as I'm seeing it, and they get information, so I don't have to actually make 10 phone calls and say, this is what I've got. They already know what I've got. And then also it gives the viewers a behind-the-scenes look at what I'm doing as well. And I think that that's important in this day and age, because people want the information now. You have to be very careful with all that stuff as well for ethical reasons, but I like doing it. Advice, some of the best advice that I had was from a news director who said, do not call my newsroom, say that you want to work for me, and say that you should be working at my station because you've done your time, because you're ready for it because you've done your time. And so I feel like that's a really good piece of advice, because for me, when the tornadoes come or the hurricanes come, I'm working. I'm volunteering to be out in the field, or I'm volunteering to come at the desk, or maybe I'm not even on air. Maybe I'm just making the phone calls and doing whatever. You never stop paying your dues. Doesn't matter how many years you've been in the business. If you think that you're done working because you've worked 5 or 10 years in a medium market, it's not probably a good thing to say to someone if you want a job. The work-life balance is a really interesting thing, because I don't have a work-life balance either. Everything I do is really for work, in the sense that that's why I have lived in so many cities. That's how I met my husband. That's how I've done everything. And we make decisions kind of as journalists on where we want to go and what we want to do. Granted, it has kind of like delayed some of our bigger picture things. Like, we don't know where we're going to live in 5 years, and we don't know if we're ever going to have a family other than our 2 dogs. But those are good things too. I mean, those are things that make us happy. So yeah, my biggest advice for you is just never think that you're too good for the work. Never think that you are done paying your dues, and be willing to change, because it was a really scary time just a few years ago when all my friends were losing their jobs. And I remember thinking how blessed and lucky I was that I still was able to work, and it was we were all willing to kind of do whatever it took. And I think that that is the compassion, that's the passion that you have to have in this business, is that you have to be able to get the story, you have to be able to have compassion, but you have to be able to do what it takes for the information for your community. So, you know, sometimes you're really saving lives. When I worked in Southwest Missouri, do you guys remember Joplin, the Joplin tornado? Okay, so my husband worked that one. I was already in North Carolina, but we had some pretty massive tornadoes in Missouri, and we were live on the air for like 12 and 13 hours at a time, like almost every spring. And we would actually have people call and say, "You saved my life." Like, we didn't know that the tornado was coming. We didn't hear the sirens. We didn't know what was happening, and you saved our lives. And I know that sounds silly, but that is the stuff that makes me want to work in news, because you really do have that impact. And I don't know, that's it. That's it for me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That was inspiring. Doug Levy has been not only an on-air personality, but also involved in sales. So we're going to get 2 lessons in one. Doug Levy.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Good. I had a non-traditional start to the career, and I think it's been unlike so many other people's stories. But you know, there's a way to become a doctor. Everyone kind of goes through a certain way, and you become a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant. There really is no single way to get into this business, and I think there's probably a different path for every single person who's broken through and found a way. I'm going to tell a quick story that my mom likes to tell about me, but she talks about my first grade teacher who once called her up on the phone crying out of frustration that I was constantly talking out of turn and disrupting the class. And she asked me, she said, "Doug, why do you insist on continuing to be disruptive in the class?" And my response, according to my mother, was, "Well, I really think that the other kids want to hear what I have to say." In first grade. So I was destined to be somebody who had a microphone in front of him. And I went to the University of Iowa, worked at KRUI, the student radio station, had a show that was the single most important 3 hours of my week every week. That's all I wanted to do. Everything, going to class and partying, all that stuff was great, but the radio show was really what it was all about. And then while I was in school, I got a job at a commercial station in Muscatine, Iowa. And so I would leave the party at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday, drive through secondary farm roads throughout Iowa, and then find myself in the Quad Cities. And I would do midnight to 6 a.m. Saturday night. And again, nobody had to ask me to do it. Nobody had to pull me away from the party. I gladly went. And did that, and then came back to Chicago and thought, I'm ready to be on the air in Chicago. And it became a hobby of mine to send out tapes. And I would take different slices of a tape, different pieces of a show, and find ways to just send it to every single person in the country who had an ad in a paper or a trade publication trying to get on the air. I was also waiting tables at the time. And eventually, what I really wanted to do, the only reason I went into the business is I wanted to work at a station here in Chicago, WXRT. I don't know if anybody listens to 93.1 XRT, but when I was growing up, that was the coolest station in town, playing the best music and where I wanted to be. And I got a job working at XRT, and I did weekend overnights and then weekend mornings. And again, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning after a Saturday night is really, really hard to do, but you do it. It's like exercising, you know. Once you get out of bed and put the shoes on and you're off, it's okay. I did that for 15 years, but knowing that that was not the lucrative part of the business and that I had more than just a desire to play records, I started sales, and I started selling advertising time. And does anybody ever see the show WKRP in Cincinnati? Yes. Used to be on a long time ago. Well, the guy who was selling was the least interesting guy on the show, Herb Tarlick, and he was a slimy ad sales guy. And I had absolutely no interest in pursuing that part of the business. But I went and got a job at a radio station in the sales department and discovered that it's really a fascinating job, connecting people with marketing solutions and actually helping them grow their business. And you learn about all these other businesses besides just broadcasting. So I was on the air and selling simultaneously, basically working 7 days a week. There's no such thing as work-life balance at any point, I don't think, because the further along I've gotten in my career, the harder it's become to find balance. But pursued both sides. And now I'm the general manager of 2 Spanish-language television stations and 4 Spanish-language radio stations. All I wanted to do was be a DJ at XRT. Johnny Fever, right? And instead I went through Herb Tarlick. I don't know how that happened, but I will tell you what everyone seems to be sort of articulating, and what is absolutely true is you got to want to do this job. This has to be something like your neuroses. You have to want it so much more than what it's going to give back to you early on. Yes, it becomes very gratifying. Yes, there are many, many things that you get back out of it. But more than anything, I think a career in broadcasting, journalism, radio, TV, whatever it is, it has to be something that is fundamental to who you are, so much so that you're willing to give up more than what you're getting back. And for those people who have that sickness, there is a really, really, really wonderful reward for you, because it's a cliche. We probably all heard it, but if you can do something that you love, you don't have to work a day in your life. And I've put in a lot of hours, and I don't know that I've really put in a full day's work yet, 30 years in. It really is a wonderful thing, and do anything, take anything. My cover letter always used to say, I'll sweep the floors. I'll make the coffee, which there's no position of floor sweeper or coffee maker, but I worked for free just to be around it, just to warm your hands on the fire. The warmth coming off of it. Get to know everybody and anybody. Do anything and everything. And to those people who do really love it, you'll get a job. The folks who showed up here today, you'll get a job. You will ascend. You'll find the position that makes your heart flutter, and you'll have a great career. So.
Jenny is now going to tell us about her position. She's a senior web designer. What's a senior web designer? I don't know. Yes, I do. But Jenny, tell us about the position of senior web designer and your career.
Thank you. Does this work? I'm not used to these at all. I work in a very dark office, and that's how I like it. Thank you for saying my title. I believe it says social media manager in the program. I don't know where you got that. That sounds way cooler. I'm happy you did. Yes. Okay. I am senior web designer at the local PBS affiliate WTTW Channel 11. Spend equal amounts of time at 98.7 WFMT doing the WFMT.com website. I've designed the entire look and feel in the past 8 years for both the stations, as well as, and I can talk a little bit about news and local television by talking about Chicago Tonight, Check Please, and we have local guy Jeffrey Bear who does a lot of local tourism. So all of those things I've put my fingerprint on. I come from a very small town in Ohio called Lucas, and the closest thing that you might have heard of is our prison was the Shawshank Prison in one of my favorite movies, and we have some really cool tours there. So come to Lucas, Ohio. There were 47 people in my graduating class in Lucas, Ohio. And I knew I wanted to be a graphic designer since I was about 5 when I discovered construction paper and Elmer's glue, and I loved the smell of crayons. And I know this doesn't really have anything to do with probably your career path, but I can talk about, just having the right attitude and getting in the door. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can. Okay, good. So I was lucky because the University of Cincinnati was 3 hours away from me, and it's a state school, and it costs about $1,500 a quarter. And I got rid of 1,000 of that per quarter by having a scholarship. So it was practically a free school. But it happened to be one of the top 3 graphic design schools in the country, oddly enough, because the professors were all straight from Basel, Switzerland. I couldn't understand them, but they were wonderful. And it was a 5-year program. It was co-op education. So by the time I graduated, I had 1.5 years of internship and more than internship. They were paid positions. One was in Chicago. It was a graphic design guy who I had to basically just get his coffee. So that wasn't too good. Another one was for the stock exchange in New York, and I got $8 an hour. I lived in Greenwich Village, 3 other people in my room on the floor. I wasn't able to enjoy New York because I had no money. So I ate macaroni and cheese, but I walked a lot, and I rode the subway a lot. So I was a print designer when I graduated, and then I discovered I am not good at this. I can't stand print. There's too much room for error. When I figured out I wanted to be in the web, I didn't even have a web address. I'd never seen the internet, but I interviewed for a place called Neoglyphics, and they hired me because my portfolio was okay, but I made them laugh, and I had a lot of good educational background, and I had a 1.5-year internship, and I could do stuff. I could already do stuff. And so I got that. I was the first person to launch Sears.com, so I worked on Sears.com for 3 years. I worked on Wrigley.com, and my idea of web buttons was wadded up pieces of, I took pictures of chewing gum that I had chewed, and those were the buttons. I thought that was so cool. That didn't last long. That was not a good, no, that was gross. It was, I thought gross was equaled creative, but apparently not. So eventually, I took a couple of crappy jobs during the bad economy. But then I got hired at WTTW, and I thought it was a dream. And I still think it's a dream because I'm working with people like Rick Steves and Ken Burns, and I get to see the Downton Abbey photography before almost anyone. And it's truly fun. It's really fun. And where maybe your jobs would cross over, working with the news staff at Chicago Tonight. For instance, yesterday I was at lunch with a going away party for a content producer on Chicago Tonight. And at the very same time, every reporter at the table looked at their phones, and they had gotten the news that Barbara Bird Bennett, the CEO of the CPS, was going on leave because of federal investigation. And then about 5 minutes later, they found out that our cardinal had died. Cardinal Francis George, I believe. I'm not Catholic. I'm bad at this. But anyway, the whole lunch changed. Everyone skedaddled. We had to do a live panel last night. So my work balance is generally okay. My shift is 10 to 6. I don't get up at 4 unless I really want to do laundry or feed my children. Not really. Don't really care about that.
Wow. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah. So it's 10 to 6, but last night it was a lot later because I had to prepare photography and help the panel get ready to interview some of the Catholic leaders about the cardinal. And so there's a little bit of, uncertainty in my job, but I graduated a million kajillion years ago from college. So I am striving for a little work balance at this point, and I know that's different than everybody else, but I need that, and I have kids, and I want that, and you can do that too. You might not be able to be on the air chasing really hot stories, but what I do is really fun. My last thing is my advice is to do something scary. I moved to New York by myself in college. I went to Europe when I was 17 to play in an orchestra, and I did Second City Improv, which was horrifyingly scary. I don't know why I did that. But I graduated, and I put on a show. And all these things don't have anything to do with what you guys do, but they do shape you, and they give you confidence, and they make you bold. And boldness is really important. And I just learned that recently. So,
Did you say bold or
bold.
bald?
Oh, I'm sorry. I always had trouble with A and O. I think I'm done. I love my job. It's great.
Well, last, before we have the questions and answers, is someone who's worked, I think, in every city that I would like to have lived in. San Francisco, Dallas, West Palm Beach, and San Antonio. That sounds great. UB, tell us about your career.
Well, can I get invited to the Miami event next time?
But where's Greg?
I love Chicago, but has anybody ever been to Miami? Yeah, okay. But I'm here, and I love it. And I love what I do. I don't work. Yeah, I don't work. And I always told myself that the moment that I said that I was going to work, actual work, I would probably like move or quit or something. So yeah, really, like I really like what I do. I always say I'm going to the radio station. Oh, where you headed? I'm going to the station. Oh, where you going? I'm going to GCI. I'm going to the station. I never say I'm going to work. Well, there are a few days where I may say I'm going to work because it's fun. You know, I get paid to be me. You know, I'm exactly me. UB 2.0 on the radio. You know, because, you know, obviously I work for, you know, a radio station that's owned by not me. So I have to also, take care of their demands, the company's demands. So I take a 50-50 approach, you know, me, my creativity, my personality, and then, you know, what you want. So we pair it together and hopefully, you know, get some good ratings. My start was kind of nerdy, you know. I was a radio nerd, a geek, TV geek. And I was one of those that wanted to do like, you know, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a news reporter, you know, I wanted to do it all. I wanted to do radio as well, but I wanted to do it as something fun, you know, a hobby. And then while I was in college, I realized, wait, I can get paid to do a hobby. So I did that. I started in Miami, and I didn't want to get paid in sunshine anymore. So I left. I'll be back soon, but you know, and I wanted to just get out there. I wanted to live a little uncomfortable for a while because that's I was gonna save my advice for the end, but I'll probably try to just share it in these next couple of minutes. I wanted to live uncomfortable for a little bit and get out of Miami and see what it was like to go somewhere else. Luckily, where I was working, had a couple of people that were really great and became my mentors, and they connected me with somebody in San Francisco that started up a brand new radio station over there, and I left to San Francisco. So that was my first gig, Miami straight to San Francisco. That failed. We all got fired. I mean, I'm glad it happened, you know. First big, huge, you know, full-time job, fired. And how I found out was I got to the radio station for my 6 p.m. show to meet with my program director, you know, about a couple hours before. And the door was locked. I had a key because we were a brand new radio station, you know, sort of a mom and pop operation in San Francisco, huge city, going up against the company I work for now. And it was interesting because my key didn't work. Yeah. I was the last guy on the air, you know, daily, and I had to lock up. So the key didn't work. I knocked, and this lady came to the door, and she said, hi, can I help you? I'm like, well, yeah, I work here. She goes, oh, have a seat in the lobby. We'll be right with you. I'm like, oh, no. So my program director was still there. They had to keep, there's some kind of FCC law where you have to keep like 2 or 3 people on staff while they're making a business transition or something. So they kept him and a couple of people, and he said, yeah, so we just been sold, and that's it. The station will change on Monday. I was like, okay, well, left there, went to Dallas, and from there went to West Palm Beach to do afternoons. Dallas, I was at K104, huge station. Yeah, Dallas. Yeah, and from there I went to West Palm Beach because I wanted to get a little bit closer to home. So I did afternoons in West Palm Beach, and then I got a call to do mornings in San Antonio, so back to Texas, and then got fired. But notice how I'm saying it with a smile. You know, it's going to happen, you know. And I really enjoyed being fired, to be honest, because I'm ready for anything now, you know. So I got let go from there. And wait, which firing am I on?
Oh my gosh.
Wait. Wait. The second. They went with the syndicated morning show, and they were really shocked to hear my answer when I was in HR to what they were doing. And I said, well, that's cool. And they was like, what, you're not upset? I'm like, well, you're paying out the contract. That's cool. Thank you. But they said they're replacing you with syndication. I said, cool. I mean, hopefully that'll be me one day, you know. So fine, let's move on, you know. So we kept a good relationship. That was actually the first company I ever worked for, Cox Radio in Miami. Went back to San Antonio. How I got the gig in Miami was interesting. I was changing a flat in Miami, and I got a call for an internship I had applied for. And this guy by the name of Derek Brown actually called for an interview, and he ended up hiring me instead. And I was working like 6 a.m., you know, Saturday morning at Hot 105 in Miami. It was the equivalent to a V103. I was about 21 years old playing Anita Baker. So yeah, it was pretty cool because it was actually, you know, I'm an R&B guy, so it was actually a station that I had listened to. You know, it was one of those stations where like The Quiet Storm was like #1, you know, 6 years old and up, you know, #1 in the entire market. Well, I hopped around a couple of, you know, cities, and I ended up finally here in Chicago. My parents came from Cuba to Chicago, grew up here. My dad ran from the cold, so we're all in Miami. I was born in Miami. So there was still family here. I still have family here, actually, and I made Chicago, you know, my home, and I've been here 7 years now, doing afternoons on GCI. So it's been a great journey. I don't mind at all the couple of mishaps, the firings, and all that. I get to be myself. What I wanted to also stress to you guys is that what I see people are hiring for now is what you guys are learning right now in your generation, you know, social media, you know, Facebook, everything, blogging and everything. Like, you guys do it on a regular anyway. You know, this generation does it on the regular anyway, and that's what you're being hired for. So what you're learning in school is also great, but what you're learning as you're growing up is what's, you know, people are being hired for. One of my former interns just got hired to work at a big corporation to run their social media, or I don't even know if it's running the social media, but he's a part of their social media department straight out of college, $80K, $80,000. And I was like, wow. and for the first time, because, you know, he's a mentee, and for the first time I was like, what do I tell this guy? What do I tell this guy? What do I tell? He started making more than I did when I first started, you know? So well, he's a good friend of mine, so I told him, don't F it up. But I used the word, you know, don't F. I mean, yeah. we were having a drink. We were having a drink. I said, man, don't F it up, man. Don't F it up. Networking, what you're doing right now, awesome. Being available, a few people said it today, especially at the beginning. When you get a little bit more seasoned, then you can be a little picky, I think. Learn about unions. This is a union city. I wasn't in a union in any other market that I worked in. I would say learn about unions and learn about agents. I hope that in the questions later on, somebody brings up something about agents, because I would also like to hear from the other panelists about agents as well. Be ready to travel, go anywhere. I say I've learned so much. When I got to San Francisco, I said, well, I better prepare in case we have an earthquake and I'm on the air. You know, when I was in Miami, you know, we had tropical storms and hurricanes, so I was ready to, you know, go on the air with anything. I mean, we have fun on the air because all the stations I've worked at been primarily music intensive, but, you know, we have to be informative as well. That's another piece of advice: be informative and be responsible when you're on the air, if you plan to be on the air, or producing too. I mean, sometimes we are just with the mic and somebody else may be writing what I'm going to say. And, you know, God forbid I go on there and do a Ron Burgundy and screw it all up, you know, and read the copy wrong, you know. Be responsible. Go anywhere. Now I can cover blizzards. Been here. Intern. I would say the hardest part of being a radio personality is not taking things personal, because the title has the word person in it, you know, personality. In this business, you just have to take things, you know, on the business side. And that's where I would suggest you know, learn about unions and learn about agents especially. Let your agent handle, you know, your business. You know, you can have your little personal moments here and there, but keep that at home, you know, or on the screen or on the radio. You know, they love that. You know, no corporation wants you to be all emotional and behind closed doors, but they definitely want you to be emotional on the air. So show that. The best part is I get to be me. I want to say be informative, be responsible, especially, get uncomfortable, and you will only get to where you want to be in life by you. So even if you do go to the unions, even if you do go and get an agent, I mean, that agent may come to you and say, hey, you know, I want to work with you. But that's not where it stops for you. You better continue, because, you know, that agent is now representing you, you know, so you only go as far as you want to go. Internships, yes, we do have an internship program, and we actually have somebody here from iHeartMedia that will talk to you about it later on. I will say this, I've had a few interns that were on my show working with me that have made it to some good, big, powerful positions, and I'm proud to say that they've made it to positions above me already. One of them actually is the nighttime personality, DJ Moondog. He was my intern. He works from 6 to midnight, and his web numbers are higher, his ratings are higher, and I'm just proud, you know. I mean, maybe 10 years ago, I'd have been like, SHI, you know, the rest, like, dang, you know. Another intern, DJ AO, he actually went to Columbia. He's now he went to Miami to be program director, and now he's in LA, also programming a radio station in LA, and a couple of others. So we do have an internship program at the station, so I could look around the room and see who's going to make it. I see a lot here, because that's what I do. That's what I did with those interns, you know. So holla at me. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for this great panel. And for the staff here at WLS. Now we're ready. Questions and answers. And Dick, is there a microphone or?
Raise your hand if you've got a question, and I'll give you a mic.
Let's use one. Okay.
Question.
In the back.
This is I didn't expect Angela Ingram to be here. Angela is communications. VP Communications for iHeartMedia in Chicago land, and God bless her. When we decided to come to Chicago, iHeart, as you can see, is very important to us, and we love them, and we have tried to make a contact in the market. And Jessica King, who's VP for the whole company, said, Chicago is all you need is fabulous, Angela Ingram. And those were part of the truest words I've ever heard. And I just, on the part of iHeart, if you can just say hello, then we'll go to our questions.
Thank you.
And in that money, that wonderful $1,500, iHeartMedia. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. iHeart is thrilled to be a part of this Career Day, Job Fair Day. We really believe that you are the future of our company. Unfortunately, we won't be around all the time. So we are really committed to breeding the next stock, I guess I should say, of radio and television professionals. Special thanks. I mean, we have some real pros from UB to Consuela to Eric Z to Rufio and just our whole lineup at the stations. But iHeartMedia in Chicago and across the country is certainly committed to these type of events and to the growth of your future. I will tell you that internships do work. I started at iHeartMedia, formerly Clear Channel, 33 years ago, and I am still there. So that is a blessing through various acquisitions, various company name changes, but I worked my way up from an intern to vice president of communications for our stations here in Chicago, and I pour in a lot of corporate projects as well. So when you look at an internship, they do work, and you do have staying power if you do what you need to do every day and really are committed to the work that you do. I will be at the job fair from noon to 1. I have information on our internship programs, and we are revising our internship program in Chicago. It is now a paid internship along with class credit. So please stop by the table and make sure that you pick up some information and apply. Can't guarantee, but you can certainly apply. Thank you so much again for being here today. Dick, you've been absolutely fabulous, and your entire team. And so as iHeartMedia, we are proud to be a part of this event. And ABC7, you're a true partner of ours. Thank you so much, John. We enjoy working with you as well. Thank you.
Thank you. First question.
Hi, I'm Eric from the College of Lake County. It's a real privilege to be able to hear the testimony from you guys. I'm definitely learning a lot, and I'm sure the rest of us in the audience are too. The biggest question I have would be, why are there so many changes, both on TV and on air, on the radio, especially with radio DJs or anchors? Why is there always so much change? It seems like one day we have one anchor on TV, the following day it's someone else.
You want to start?
Oh, yeah. Well, as you heard, I got fired a couple times. So that's one. Or maybe it doesn't work out. Or maybe it doesn't work out for you. Because I've left stations, too, where I'm like, okay, I think I've done everything, I wanted to do here. Let's move on. And I will say that every move I made, except for one, it's probably been for the better. But even while I downgraded a bit, I went home and I did part-time work there until I finally got back here. And even when I got back to Chicago, I was still part-time until I got the afternoon gig here. So could be a little bit of both. I don't know. It's very strange. It's also because of how media is now, I believe. I can't answer for TV, but in radio, things are just changing with social media and everything. I was watching a show the other day where something happened on TV with a news reporter, Being Mary Jane. And did you all notice in that show, she did something on TV that it was an interview that turned out to be like, very controversial, made it to CNN. And, that became big, but then it became even more like just crazy when somebody made a remix of it and put it on YouTube, and then now it went all over. And then now, you may have, she may have been popular with like the certain demographic, but now she's got everybody knowing who she is because of what she did. So social media may have changed that, and maybe a station may say, hey, we want her. Look what she did. This person is not really producing these numbers. So it could be a little bit of everything. I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in. I think in Chicago, Chicago's one of those markets, a destination market for talent. And I don't think you do see a lot of change in Chicago. And maybe, somebody specifically, we want to talk about or find out about, that's fine. But when I was in Raleigh, for example, which was the 24th largest market, we had changes because people were moving onward and upward. And those talent that would come through to a Raleigh station maybe had, top 10 potential, so they might stay for a contract cycle, which is generally 2 to 3 years, and move on from there. Or Wilmington, or I think we had Sioux Falls here, and you see a lot of change on those kind of mid-major markets, and those smaller markets, you do see a lot of, talent rotating through because they're going somewhere. They're going to a destination market. Generally before Chicago, Roz is very unique, to start here, and what'd she say, 27, it's over 25, 27 years, Roz? 26. To start here and kind of stay with one station for that long and start in Chicago and land in Chicago. Typically, I saw Stacy Baca earlier today. She was, I can't see her right now, but Stacy was, God, where was Stacy? Was she in Omaha, I think? It doesn't matter. But anyway, typically when people come to this television station, they've usually been 2, maybe 3 places before they get here, and all that represents change. We are in a position now where we are a legacy station. I think you mentioned the legacy station in Madison, which, so we have some people that are retiring, and that's another thing. And they're great folks. They're just, retiring and moving on. So we're replacing and constantly keeping that funnel. So you get to know that person before, they have that big job. So, but change is a constant in this business. I think it's just going to accelerate. There's Stacy. Stacy, where were you before Chicago? San Diego. San Diego. And before that? Okay. Anything before that? Denver, Colorado. Oh my God. How about before that? No. No? Okay. No. No. But that's generally the way it works.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Jatika Expose. I'm a graduate student at Loyola University. I don't live in Chicago. I'm from Indiana, and I will be graduating on May 7th.
Congratulations.
Plug, by the way. I have a question. There are a lot of other graduate students here, and I originally got my undergrad in journalism, broadcast journalism, and I'm in grad school now to learn how to do all the cool things behind the scenes. So as a person who's trying to be versatile and have all of these skills, what advice for the producers and the, those of you who are just in the industry, what advice would you give those of us who are content producers and want to do a variety of things, both in front of the camera and behind the camera?
I was going to say volunteer, make yourself available to do those things. I remember when I was at Mizzou and we had to work first just desk shifts where we were signing out the gear to the reporters. Sometimes there was a really easy VOSOT to be done, and I'll do it. Like, if you make yourself available above and beyond, people are happy to utilize you in those ways. So I would say sign up for opportunities that lie outside of your comfort zone. Ask, like, hey, I'm doing this, but I see you're doing this. Can I just spend the day with you? So I think it's kind of like, how much do you want it? Can you create those opportunities for yourself? That's worked for me.
Also coming out, because when I was in college, I initially wanted to be a reporter and then eventually decided, okay, I'm going to go the producer track. But really, once I graduated, I made a producing tape and I made a reporting tape, and I just kind of, like everyone's been saying, kept my options open. And when I was at NTTV doing all of my work, like I said, I worked from audio to reporting to eventually being the news director of our college station. So like she said, just, dabble in everything. These days, you can't just be a producer. You have to kind of know how to edit, know everything. And that makes you, regardless if you become a producer or reporter, that's going to make you better at your job. So just, dabble in everything. Do whatever you can. Eventually it'll work out for you. When I was in Sioux Falls, I came on as a producer. After 3 months, they asked me to do some on-air teases on their 10 o'clock. I was like, yeah, I'll come in earlier, I'll do them, I'll write them, I'll get on there. And, I did that. And eventually I was still producing, and they had asked me to do a couple stories, and I was like, yeah, I'll work over and do a couple stories for you. And so you just kind of have to be willing and be open and let people know your desires. Sometimes, you never know what's open or what, your news director is looking for or your GM, because if you don't express what you want, when something becomes open, you can't, they may not look to you for that. So just always be open, always be willing to do different things, and let people know, like, you're looking for a job, or you're open, you want to produce, you're also interested in dabbling in reporting. Let them know what you want, and be open to doing that, so.
I'd just like to add one thing. Even though the platforms change, there are a lot of things that are still core. Writing is essential. So you need to be a good writer, and you need to have passion. So really focus on writing, because there's a different style for everything that you're writing on.
Hello, my name is Lauren Smith. I am a senior at Loyola University of Chicago, also graduating May 7th with undergrad, but it's still that day. Okay, so I am a born and bred Chicagoan, fell in love with journalism in Chicago. And because I want to go into this business, I'm, ready to get out there and move and do whatever I need to do. But as a person who has always been here, I kind of want to ask, what type of advice can you give someone who has to move and doesn't get easier as you keep on going, as you go to a new city? What's kind of like, some of the things that you have to do as soon as you get to the city?
That's a good question.
You
want to
Okay. So I have been here a long time, but I interned in Sydney, Australia, and they gave us a bus or a transportation pass and said, "Good luck." And that is a ferry, a bus, and I would take a bus and a ferry to get to work. It was kind of crazy. So I think that was important. Learn the transportation system. And sometimes you get lost, and then you discover a cool cafe or something, a museum. And I've done that so many times. I took it the wrong way, and then I discovered something cool. And then the friends I met there, I'm like, oh, did you hear about this place? So I guess kind of get lost in the city a little bit, and it's okay.
Sounds fun. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jose Gonzalez. I'm from Western Illinois University. First, I'd like to thank everyone who coordinated this event and everyone who woke up early so they could attend here. ICE is producing my university's newscast, and I was given, I was assigned to create my first package. So I filmed, got sound bites, but the finished work did not turn out the way I wanted it to be. To the panelists who experienced a similar roadblock, how did you manage to resolve that issue?
Well, I write packages quite a bit, and they never turn out the way I want them to. So I think you're always rooted in journalism and storytelling, and sometimes you go out with an idea, and it doesn't happen the way that you think it's, gonna happen. So you just do the best you can. I don't think that anyone is ever walks away from a story and says, that I nailed it. Yeah, I mean, if you do, that's great. But I think that those happen maybe, once every 2 years or something, where you're just like, that was perfect. I couldn't have done that any better. I couldn't have voiced it better. I couldn't have had a better interview. So I think, you can't be too hard on yourself when it comes to that.
I also think that there's no substitute for experience. It's time with the tools in your hands. So do it again, and then do it again and again and again and again and again, as many times as you possibly can.
And I'm going to chime in from a production standpoint, because when these people go out and shoot and think they know what they're doing, sometimes they don't. And we have to get it and make it better in the edit. We always call it fix it in the mix, well, fix it in the mix, yeah. We got to fix it. I would always shoot a tight shot and a wide shot. I mean, those are basic things. White balance your camera. I mean, there's certain little things that, it's 101. Make sure your picture, you're in focus. I mean, I'm in the third market, and I will say that I still get stuff that's out of focus, not white balanced, and, and you're like, wow, who shot this, They were having a bad date today, But it's still.
Torch, are we good? We're good?
He he knows, right? Let's mix it in the mix, you know? So then you get in the editing and you're like turning, because it's so badly white balanced, oh, well, black and white looks good for this promo. You know what I mean? I mean, those are the things. So like, those are basic, simple production tools, but tight and wide always. I mean, get cutaways. I mean, when I first started at this station, I won't, whatever. Sometimes the photographers would go out, and I used to die because they just give you a locator shot. I have to cut a promo with a locator shot. I mean, talk about being tough. That's all they shot. I got B-roll. It's one street sign. You know? That's my B-roll. So always shoot more than you can possibly have, because then you have choices. You know, it's always fun when you have no choices, because then you have to go a certain route. You know, you zoom in on that street shot, you know? We all know those little tricks. So those are the things. I mean, if you want to make your packages better, and you guys are all, because you guys are all want to be in front of the camera, and really nowadays, I mean, I feel for you. You're going to have to shoot, write, edit, and be your own talent. You know, they have that weird wiggy thing, you know? The camera where this camera, I was watching it, like you could shoot yourself while you're doing a stand-up. It's like crazy, you know? I'm like, oh my God, you poor things, you know? There's not even going to be anybody to bounce any ideas off of, you know? You're going to be out in the field, ooh, maybe I look like this. It's all going to be crazy. And, you know, YouTube, I say, killed our craft. You know, it's partly your, fault, because YouTube killed our craft. There's no lighting, you know, people flip this on and 1 million hits, and that's it, you know? There's no craft in it anymore. There used to be a craft, you know? So, and this can get 1 million hits, and that's where you guys are lucky, because you know what? You got the internet. You can start your own channel. Nobody's thinking that. You're all thinking, oh, I got to get a traditional broadcast media job. No, you don't. You can go on and create your own little show and put it on the web, and if you start getting hits and hits and hits and it goes viral, it's a whole new ball game right now. And you're coming into it at the beginning, you know, versus us, you know, that have been in the traditional world. But the whole world's changing. We're at a tipping point in this whole world in a lot of industries and businesses. And you guys are nice because, you know, you're great. You're young and you can take those risks, and those opportunities are all there for you. So I would think at it, I would go at it from a different standpoint than thinking that you have to seek this traditional broadcast media. I just would if I had to do it all over again in this current environment.
I really quickly wanted to share one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. I often would shoot myself in the foot on a story, being really wed to a certain idea I got when I was out in the field. A mentor of mine called it killing your babies, which sounds graphic, but there are certain sound bites or shots sometimes you get dead set on. Like one time I did this story about a brain surgeon, and he was doing surgery on this guy who was a drummer, and I was like very set on this idea of like hands of a surgeon, and I was like trying so hard to make it work, like the story wasn't as good as it could be. So like if there's a sound bite or a concept or a shot you are like very set on, take a look at the story again and be willing to let go of how you initially saw the story. That is something that has always helped me. When I feel like a story isn't coming together the way I want it to, it's usually because I tried to make something work that just wasn't meant to work. So be willing to change, to take criticism. Gosh, use your peers, because sometimes they'll tell you like, what you're trying to make work, it's not working. So that has hugely helped me in those circumstances.
Good afternoon. I want to say it's a pleasure to be here today. I've learned a lot. My name is Nuri Mohammed. I'll be graduating from Kennedy King College on May 2nd. My question is in regards to lead block stories. Is there such thing as getting those stories first? And if so, how do you go about jockeying for those or not stepping on your colleagues' toes?
Good question.
Yeah. Reporter, news director, GM.
Everyone, it's all man for themselves. Yeah. No, you know, a lot of times there are beats, so that kind of depends on the structure of your newsroom. If you know someone who's working on something, I always just say, hey, are you working on this? Because I have this angle that I'd really like to take. What do you think? Sometimes I just work with the people within the newsroom to make sure that I'm not stepping on their toes, because there are certainly times when you're going to kind of cross, because if you're following a big story and you're all trying to do breakouts, you know, it's not like your idea might be super original, you know, if you're doing a breakout. But also, you know, you're always trying to get the exclusive. You're always trying to get the thing that's going to lead the newscast. I mean, that is what I was trying to do and am trying to do. So you just have to be courteous with your peers, but at the same time, you're there to do a service for your community. So you got to hustle, you know. And sometimes people do get their feelings hurt in a newsroom, and you just kind of have to be delicate on that. Did that answer your question? Was that? Okay.
All right, I have a question on this side. Hang on. I digress. Here we go.
Thank you very much. My name's Carolina Cruz. I graduated from Columbia College back in 2012, but I really did not want to miss this opportunity to be able to hear from you guys. I'm already a reporter in a smaller market, but I wanted to know, especially for those who are MMJ or have experience as an MMJ, multimedia journalist, for a lot of us who are still either learning the ropes or already there but trying to get better, how do you juggle being creative while you are your own camera guy, your own videographer, and be able to create a good package where you can add a lot of nat sounds and a very compelling story that you want to make sure is going to help you improve your craft and at the same time move you to the next level?
Okay. As an MMJ, I think, you know, keep it simple. You know, I think that you've heard like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I think that always helps. You know, sometimes you only need 2 sources for a story, and at the end of the day, if you are humanizing one person, you start from that person's issue. So that helps. You know, as we were saying, as I think Vicki was saying earlier, you know, get a tight shot, get wide shots. I would say get a super tight and a super wide. Follow the person. Sometimes I think tripod shots are great, but if you're in a story where there's a lot of action, get off the tripod. Get the close-ups of the feet, the hands, the movement. If you want some really great examples, are any of you familiar with NPPA? Okay, get familiar with NPPA. Great storytelling examples there. Follow MMJs who are doing really tremendous work. I work with a guy, his name is Dave Delosier. He's won like 30 Emmys over his career, and he's an awesome MMJ, and he worked out of KUSA and moved to Madison for family reasons, and I watch him and I learn something from him every day. So, you know, you get better. Instead of thinking, when you go out to a story, try to focus it on the way there. So if you can describe the story in 3 words with a subject, an action, and a feeling, then that will also help you write and will help you focus. Instead of going out to a story like you've got a machine gun, you just have to get everything, think of it like you only have 1 bullet, and that will really help you focus in your writing and your shooting.
Yeah, they asked me to jump in because we encounter this a lot, especially at my market size, which is 134, where a lot of you, of course, there's different routes to get to, but if you're looking at a starting market like mine, you'll encounter this. Sometimes it is about getting the job done and then reflecting at the end of the day on what you could have done better, or talking to your colleagues, how would you have put this story together? So I think having that time to reflect and review your work is certainly important. And I would echo what Michelle said, like look for the effect of the story rather than the event. Find the find the person to humanize and really share their story so that there's some emotion in it. So maybe your sources are limited, but you're really offering the opportunity for your viewer to connect with that person and know a little bit about them, because that's going to produce, as Molly talked about, that tangible result, something that maybe there's a call to action at the end of the story, or you feel like you really know the person and the issue that they're encountering, and that all comes through in your storytelling, and it kind of circles back to number 1, know your craft, know your writing, be a good writer, and reflect on your work.
I would only ask that, also know that perfect is the enemy of good. Jessica's main priority, you better make slot. first and foremost. So, I mean, it's great that you have, and you absolutely should know your craft and make it as best as possible. But your first priority is making slot on that newscast that day. So if you don't get that right, that's going to lead to a pretty short career, right? So, yeah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Gabriel Ulene. I'm currently a student here at Washington College, also graduating in May, like many of us. I guess I picked up a couple of words or key phrases from each one of you guys. Victoria being adaptable, Sarah pretty much taking criticism well, Emily being a mediator, Margaret having range, John, grit, Doug, driven. Yubi, I would say, reach out of your...
Fired.
No, well, I would say for him, honestly, I would say for him, it was just reach out of your own comfort zone. Jenny was education and also be bold. And then Michelle was be proactive. Is there any other advice that I may have missed as far as in terms of being I would say an ideal candidate to possibly being a productive employee in the media field? Is there anything else? Okay, all right. Be yourself.
Have a good attitude. If you smile, it makes up for a lot of your weaknesses. If you can get along with others and play well, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also, so many of us have jumped to different, cities and markets. Do your research. Before, I know someone over here had asked, about the city and kind of learning it and things once you get there. Do your research before, do your research on on your stations. Like before as you're applying, don't send out the same cover letter or resume. I literally had 15 different resumes and cover letters just for everyone that I was applying for. So really hone in, do the research on your city, on your station, who they're owned by. That's also gonna, help. So research.
I'd also like to say, be sure you follow up.
Yeah.
We got down to a third interview for 2 candidates, very equal for web developer. One of them called and thanked us, one of them didn't, and that was all it took. He didn't get the job. He didn't follow up on, maybe he followed up on interview 1 and 2, but that was the tiny difference in the end. Goes along with cover letters too.
That's a great point. And you're afraid to ask somebody, and this is the advice I always give when somebody's going for a job. If you were to ask somebody, what's the goal of the interview, right? And everybody would say, well, to get the job. No, the goal of the interview is to get the next interview. That's your single focus. When you're going in for that first interview, the goal is to get called back. You're not going to get the job in the first interview. You just want to be in that second cut. You want to make the cut. That should be your goal going into that interview. So that's something that's really important because a lot of people come in with guns blazing and think they have to sell you right there in that first interview. You just got to sell yourself to the second one and then the third one. And then you worry about getting the job.
And in an interview, it's not just about answering the questions, it's about having good questions. Ask questions.
Yeah, right. I was about to say that.
I would say don't be timid. Sorry, I loved John's comment about no calls please means we're gonna be probably impressed if you call. Every time I've boldly reached out to someone I don't know at all or asked a question that maybe made me or them feel uncomfortable, I shouldn't say every time. This is a lie. Sometimes it backfires 2 out of 10 times like he was saying, but I think that most times it will really benefit you. If you kind of feel ooh, I don't know if I should send the email to this person, or if you have that little feeling, ooh, this feels uncomfortable to me, it's probably something you should be doing.
My last thing, once you do get into a job and you're starting out kind of like myself, I volunteer a lot. There's a lot of opportunities, and sometimes you're working late or waking up early, but I'm meeting so many people. I'm on one floor all day, so I don't get to see people in the newsroom or in creative, and then when we all come to volunteer, it is kind of nice to just learn more about the company you're actually working for and meet more people.
I think it's also about being global. You want to know your job description. You want to be able to get your job done, but be a self-starter. Start to think outside of that. How can you be a team player? How can you keep growing and keep learning? Because that's the way you get better. And as a manager, I don't always want to have to tell you what to do. I want to see you take some initiative, to do more than maybe what the job asks sometimes, but you're doing it because it's right for the newsroom, it makes the overall quality in the team better.
All right, thank you for your comments.
And excuse me, I just want to say that good luck to you, because you sound like you probably would be a good interview, because just based on your takeaway notes from the panelists. So yeah. Yes, good.
It was a great question. Look how many answers you got. You know, I want to add one more quick thing to that, and then we'll get a question over here. The first time that I interviewed over at Channel 7, and I came in for an audition, I totally bombed that audition. I was like a deer in headlights. And they said, thanks, but no thanks. Mm-hmm. And I went home and I cried. And then I said, well, wait a minute. You know, who is my competition here? Me. I'm competing against myself. And I had a really good idea of what management was looking for at that point. And I went back and I made a whole nother tape. And I just went in there and said, hey, look, you know, that probably wasn't my best work. But I guarantee you that give me a week or two and I can be as good as any of these reporters here. I am a quick study and I can do this. And that's when they called me back. So be persistent. Mm-hmm. Believe in yourself. Be confident. Okay, another question.
Hi.
Okay.
Well, that was quite a motivational speech over there. Thanks for that. My name is Alex Whitler, and I'm a junior at Loyola University Chicago. And I've really appreciated your nuggets of advice on what applicants have really stood out for. I loved how you told us, you know, I don't want to hear that you want to do CBS this morning. I want to hear that you want to be in the A block. So I guess my question to you is, for those of us, you know, we're here. We've had internships, we've had opportunities. So from there, at that point, not exactly what's next, but what are some of those other examples of those people who stood out in your mind? Those people where you said, wow, now that one, I want to call them back because of X. So what is X? Thanks.
Right. That will get a call back. Just your presentation. I would say your presentation right now with what you just said and how you addressed, you know, Roz, and then went on into your question and everything. I mean, I would say presentation, like, will help you win. Yeah, absolutely.
I also would like to add, there is still a traditional element to interviewing. We have people that come in jeans. I wear jeans every day. This dress, feel weird. But, you know, dress appropriately for an interview. I mean, I'm in the art department. I don't care about that. It's not important to me, other than presentation that day.
I think people tend to want to say what they think the interviewer wants to hear. I interviewed for APs, and I was so impressed that a young woman came in and, again, boldly kind of answered some of my questions in ways I didn't expect, didn't pair it back to me, like it was a little bit critical, but had good thoughtfulness about what we did, understood what we did, as if someone they knew was asking the question rather than, I want you to give me a job, so I'm going to say exactly what you want. So a boldness and a sense of self is what has stood out to me. Like, that person is saying it, and you know that they'll react that way in an interview with someone they're doing a story on. Like, if you can see that someone presents themselves in that way, I think that's impressive.
You can't fake being prepared. You actually have to be prepared. You can't fake being articulate. You have to be articulate. And those are skills that you can develop in so many different ways. If you came into an interview and expressed that you can talk goodly.
Goodly.
My name is Harold Boone, and I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm currently at Kennedy King, Missouri, in the media department. And right now, I'm doing a radio shadowing from 10 to 2 on the Harley Rush Show. And my question is this: for each and every one of you, I want to know, when did you know what you actually doing? I know everybody took their different paths, but when did you know, when the light went on for you, that this was what you were supposed to be doing?
For me, it was when the light went on and it said, on the air. That really was the moment.
Yeah.
I knew when I was 5 with the construction paper. Serious.
I knew when I would do like mock. No, not when I got fired. Who said? God, I should have never said that. I just knew when I felt like I was just creating stories and creating like these magical moments for radio, like as a kid, you know, because it was something that I thought was fun because I imagined it something being a hobby that I would do later on, and then it became, you know, a job. And yeah, when that on-air light comes on, that's when you're on. You know, I have interns all the time that say, "Oh, I know how to do that." "Oh, yeah." They'll be watching the TV. "Yeah, teleprompter, I got that." No, not until you actually get that. Yeah, so that's when it happens. Especially like in radio, you have all these, you know, all this compression and everything on the microphones, and you know, when you finally hear yourself in the headphones. Like when I first heard myself in Miami, I was like, and I was at a college radio station, but obviously you're not going to have all that compression and everything at a college level. Some do. Some college level radio stations are better than the bigger commercial radio stations in some markets, but mine wasn't. So when I got to Hot 105 in Miami, boom, that's when it hit. Like, whoa, that's me? It didn't even sound like me. Yeah, so that's when it hit. And then that's when I just went full force. I was like, I love this. Let's go. Yeah.
Do we all? Okay.
Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, that was a little long.
I'll try to keep it short. But I mean, like Roz said, I am from Dallas, Texas. So, you know, not everyone just, I guess, dreams of going to some small town that you've never heard of. I was in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. But I think the minute when I didn't get a job right away, I ended up making one of those kind of bold, rash decisions, and I moved out. I was waitressing, and I just graduated, and, you know, my lease was up at my apartment, and I was living home, and I'm like, okay, this is not like what I went to school for. And so I made a rash decision and moved out to California, and I was actually there a year. And at that moment, when I kind of redid everything and started really applying again, I knew, I was like, I will do whatever I need to do to get into the TV industry and get my experience. If I have to go to a small market, I'm gonna move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And when I moved there, and it wasn't the best, you know, experience. I mean, not that it wasn't the best experience, but, you know, living in a smaller town after coming from Dallas, you know, you have to kind of, you know, and I was in the Midwest, coming from the South is very different, and you learn a lot of things. While it's great, you know, being far from family, you know, you make sacrifices. But I realized at that moment, being there, I was like, I know, like, this is what I want to do. The adrenaline from breaking news and getting everything on air and working with your reporters and your general manager and your news director and everyone, I didn't care where I was. I had to be in the industry. So, and I knew it then.
My name is Carly Free. I am a senior at Loyola University with a major in broadcast journalism, minors in sociology and English. And my question for you is, what is it that we either haven't asked or you want us to know that we haven't asked already? Kind of the typical journalism wrap-up question of what you think needs to be known if we haven't mentioned it. And if you don't really have anything that you haven't mentioned, what is the most important thing that you think that you said?
I will say there's one thing I did forget to say earlier, and is that sometimes, you know, things happen for different people at different times. So just because you know, graduated like 4 years ago and you still don't have that gig, you know, don't give up, you know. In life, you know, I feel like things happen to different people at different times anyway. So, I mean, career, same thing, you know. So when did that moment strike? It may not strike for you for a long, long time. You know, whenever you're ready, you'll know.
I'd just like to add, you know, do the work that you want to do. When I was in my early 20s, everyone was like in a race to get to that big market. Some of my friends are in top 5 markets and they're not doing what they want to do, you know? And I think that that's really important, because when you, at some point, decide in your life, now I want to make time for other things in my life. Again, I'm not going to get into work-life balance, but the idea of, you know, maybe you do want to get married, maybe you do want to have children, maybe you want to buy a house. So you want to make sure that you are doing something fulfilling at work,
For me, it didn't matter what city I lived in. I just wanted to do the work. And I kind of wanted to be confident in my voice as a journalist before I went to the next market. And so, you don't have to race to Chicago because maybe you're not ready for Chicago. And those are things that I think you compete with your friends, especially at this age, like, oh, well, she's starting in market 60 and I'm starting in market 130. It's not about that. It's about what's the work that you want to do, and can you be happy doing it? For 13 years, I've been in small and medium markets, but I really love my job. Out of the fact that I get to be an evening anchor and still get to pick the stories that I want to do, and also get to volunteer to do the breaking news that I want to do, and get to be an ambassador for the city. There are only 3 other main anchors in the city. That's a privilege. And yes, I could have been in another market some other time doing another job, and that still might happen for me, but I just really love the work that I do, and I think that that's important when you guys start looking for your real jobs.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
One thing real quick. I'm sorry. Did you? No, go ahead. No, Victoria, go ahead.
I just would like to say that we're at a tipping point in this business that nobody is really reflecting here, that we should be reflecting. Market's going to change. Internet is changing it. It is the player right now. So really, I don't think there is going to be like these markets. I don't know what this industry is going to hash out to, but in the next 10 years, it's going to hash out some way, somehow. And you're either going to be in that business or you're not, but it's going to change because we're at this crossroads right now. You have the internet, you have broadcasting. We could stream. It's just going to change, and I think you guys got to start thinking in those terms versus I got to go to a small market because there's people on the web doing makeup tutorials that my daughters watch religiously, making money, and they're doing makeup tutorials. I really think that the mindset's going to have to change. That what we're saying here, it was typical 20 years ago. I'm sure it changed for you. You've seen, it's changing. So we got to embrace the change. It's happening.
When I started, all television was black and white.
Right, exactly.
There was no such thing as a satellite.
You can't keep talking on this thing.
There was no such thing as a digital.
No.
There were 3 stations in the market.
Right.
And talk about change. It keeps changing. I think that's important. It's not going to all of a sudden one day change. It's going to change this week and next week, next month, next year. It's changing. And I think one of the important things is staying on top of it. Yeah. And one thing that was not mentioned before, there are industry publications. Through the internet, you're able to keep in touch with what's going on in the business. You should know what's going on generally in the business, not just in the local market. Right. And I was also remembering that someone came in, they were applying for a news job at one of our stations, and I said, can you tell me who the senators are in your state? And they didn't. Applying for a news job, they didn't even know who the senators were.
But you got Google.
So but you should know. You can Google it on the spot, but you really should be keeping current. The ownerships change, formats change, tastes change, technology certainly changes, and you've got to keep current with that, even though you're still in school. Now's the time to do that.
All right, I have a question for all of you. How many of you watch local news? How many of you watch local news? That's pretty good. That's a lot. How do you watch it?
I was going to say, yeah.
How do you watch it?
How do you watch it?
TV and phone. TV. That's pretty. Yeah. Phone.
Yeah. Everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed because we might still have a future if you're also watching broadcast TV. Because we keep getting told you're not.
Before you say anything, We thank the panel. We thank John and the hospitality here at the station. But we also should thank Dick Block and Greg Pitts, who really put so much effort. And Dick, I keep saying to him, you are really special. Dick really puts all of this together, and we owe him a tremendous vote of thanks.
The students deserve an applause as well.
Yes.
I think it was a wonderful. Money time.
Oh, here. All right. Money time, Dick says. All right. So one of the persons who will have, I guess, the last moment to really pitch and talk about his career and give you a last little bit of takeaway is a big country music fan. In fact, he is so big as a country music fan that he is an on-air personality at Big 95.5. I give you Eric Zachary. And by the way, after Eric talks, we're gonna give away some money.
Oh, then I don't want to say anything, because everyone's like, just shut up.
Get some money.
So I'm Eric Zachary. My mic just went off. I don't know. Oh, I talk really loud. It's fine. I work at Big 95.5, which is a country station you might not have heard of because it just launched 2 months ago. It's part of iHeartMedia. I was formerly at 103.5 KISS FM. I'm still at 103.5 KISS FM. Actually, I'm on the air right now on 103.5 KISS FM through the magic of voice tracking. Rather than telling you my whole story, if you want to know how I got to do what I'm doing, come talk to me afterwards. You don't need to know that. I want to give you 3 pieces of advice that all of these people kind of have echoed and know. It's the fact that you're in this room right now. You know, I mean, I'm the same age as a lot of you guys, and I can't tell you how fortunate I am to be doing what I'm doing in my hometown. There's a lot of ways to pay your dues, and just because you go to Bemidji, Minnesota, that's awesome. But if you're not doing the right thing, if you're not answering and asking the right questions and learning everything, you're just gonna spin your wheels. It's awesome if I get my chance in Chicago, and I'm shaking still because of this, but if I'm not still constantly uncertain of what I'm gonna do next, what's the point, you know? So learn as much as you can. I work in radio, and I use Final Cut Pro every single day. I use Photoshop every single day. I spell check words every single day because I don't know how to spell very well. Putting that aside, you never are done learning. And I think the minute that you think you are is the minute someone else, probably one of you guys, is gonna take my job. So with all of that, I mean, if we wanna talk later, let's talk, but let's give away some money. And really fast before we do that, if you're here for the scholarship, that's cool, it's money, but that's the wrong reason. If you're here to learn, cool. That's what you actually should be here for, so. I love this man's commentary. A lot of you can't hear it because I was sitting there and oh, it's fantastic. All right. I feel like Vanna White. One more. There you go. All right. I think, no, that's good. There you go. I'm just really weak. Great. All right. Please be a name I can read. I'm very bad at butchering names. Keisha Howarth. Is that right? Keisha? Did I say it right? Look at me. Come up here. Congratulations. Awesome. Where are we looking? Oh. I don't take traditional pictures, so. Thank you again for coming out, guys. That's crazy. It's just so cool that you guys are here.
Eric, thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Consuela? I'm going to give you the mic.
All right. Oh, I want to piggyback on what Margaret said a little bit earlier. She said if it's something you're uncomfortable doing, you probably should be doing it. So I'm going to ask Dick if you're looking for any on-camera or talent for your new shows coming up, maybe. I'm ready for my close-up. Just letting you know. Y'all not the only ones in here trying to get a job. Bianca Fraze. Fraze, did I say that last name right? Fraze? Yay! Congratulations. Yay. You gonna keep that? Cool.
Consuela, thank you.
Just to wrap up this part of the day, Greg just whispered in my ear, tell them the 3 T's. Take this home. 3 T's. 1 is talent. I assume everyone here in the room has a talent. I'm sure you all do. Next is timing. Luck. Being at the right place at the right time, having the right circumstances that make it possible. Timing. Everybody needs a little luck. And third, and perhaps the most important, tenacity. Just hang in there. I know of individuals who send out literally hundreds of tapes, DVDs, before they finally get that job. So, talent, timing, tenacity, and you're all going to be successful. So thank you again, and we're on to the next thing, which is the lunch and the career fair. The lunches are in the back.
Roz first is going to
Oh.
I just want to let you guys know what's going on.
Yeah.
Hi.
Tell them what's going on.
So the next phase, we've got boxed lunches in the back, so everybody can grab a lunch. We're going to have a job fair, which means maybe some of the folks from the panel can stay. We've got a bunch of people in the back. There's a bunch of my colleagues from ABC7 who are here to answer your questions. We're all going to do this up in this area at the same time. So you're grabbing a lunch, you're talking to people, you're networking, you're schmoozing, and then I will be taking tours. We're going to have some tours going on of the station. So if you want to do that first, we can do that, just so we have several things happening at the same time and nobody's just sitting here waiting, because there's a lot of people and just a few folks that you can talk with. Okay? Sound good? Got it? Good. Okay. Now, I didn't know if that was the end of that. Sorry, I just wanted to.
Cell phone.